Okay folks, welcome back to another episode of Jason's Basic Computer Repair, men's hair care tips, and drinking beer. Okay, today we're going to talk about trace repair. Traces are these tiny little areas on a motherboard that obviously have a copper line running through, and sometimes these break. Either a screwdriver went over it and broke the line, or a part was removed, and in removing that part the trace was broken. So I am going to use my grinding pin that I got through Northridge Fix, and I really do recommend you check them out. Alex is really great, and they've got great stuff. That's where a lot of my stuff comes from. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first have another drink of beer, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to click this on just lightly, and I am going to grind off the mask on this area right here. Okay, revealing the trace there, and then I'm going to reveal it down here. And guys, this is the kind of stuff you have to practice. Okay, you can see now that the trace is revealed at both ends. So I'm going to turn this off. And guys, I've never charged this. I've had this since August. It's December. I have not once charged this. Go to northridge.com, northridgefix.com, and buy whatever you can there. Support those folks. Now, back on the microscope, I'm going to show you that these two areas are still connected via this trace. I'm going to use my trusty multimeter, and I'm going to set it on diode mode, which also happens to be the continuity mode. Okay, right there. And I'm going to show you that they are still connected. We'll go to the microscope, and I'll put one of my probes here. Put it, get it right there, and then the other, get it in the area right here. Oops. Okay, potentially I didn't grind through enough. So I'm going to grab my grinding pen, grind a little more of that off. And just like Alex does in his videos, I'd highly recommend you rest your wrist while doing this and soldering. I'm going to hit this area again down here. Really reveal that. Okay, we want that copper revealed. All right. Now let's test with our probes to see if I've ground down to the actual copper. Okay, you hear that sound? There's a connection between here and here. All right, through here. Well, what if I grind out so much between those 2 points that they're no longer connected? And that's what I'm going to do right now. Or actually, I'll grind one of them down so much that it's no longer connected. How about the one right here, the lower one? Let's break this connection. I'm pretty sure that that trace is no longer connected, but I need to test it. So I'll throw on a little alcohol and use a swab to swab it away. And guys, these are the lint-free swabs that I mentioned in the earlier episode, in last episode. And so I'll swab that area and let's see if they're still connected. If they're connected, well, then I'm going to have to grind some more. I don't think they are connected because you see I went over a via. So I'm going to go right here and right here. They are no longer connected, okay? So this is where you're going to need to do trace repair. And you can see right here that I actually grinded on a via that I didn't even know was there. All right? So what do? What you do is you grab this extremely thin copper wire that comes with most inexpensive soldering kits, and you're going to solder one end to the other. And just like anything else, we need to prep it. So I'm going to use my cheap non-Amtech flux. Put a little flux right here. Flux is having a hard time taking because there's alcohol in the area. Come on. Maybe I need to clean that alcohol off first. Come on. Here we go. Surely just gravity will. All right. So I've got a little flux on both that side, and it's quite a bit of flux. So I'm going to use my tweezers and run some over here. Okay. And I am just going to prep those two areas with a little bit of solder. Once again, I'm using the very thick solder because it does not matter. It's cheaper. So I'll tin my, let's get this flux out of the way. All right, so I'm going to tin this area, and I'm going to tin this area here. Get it ready for this wire. Now with that via there, I'm actually going to wind up connecting things that aren't normally connected. Now, in handling this super thin wire, you can use your tweezers, but you can use your fingers as well. And right now I'm just going to use my fingers, and I'm going to start up here at the top and get that wire to connect to this part of the trace. And it doesn't matter if I overshoot it. It doesn't have to be at the very tip of the wire. Here we go. Guys, this is one of the reasons we need to practice, because this is not easy. Got to get that wire down. a second. Gotta get that wire stiffer and down onto that trace. See, this isn't so easy. It's not easy at all because it's so tiny. This copper wire is only 1/10 of a millimeter thick. It's like handling a hair. Let's get this more to the center. Got to remember that the solder stays soft until you remove the iron, that the wire needs to stay stationary. So I'm tinning this area down here Okay, and I'm going to move my wire. Doesn't matter whether it's straight or not. Going to get a little more solder on my tip, even though I think there's plenty on there. And I'm going to get this end. So trace repair is actually extremely delicate. Hopefully that's stuck, and that is stuck. Okay, so I've got both ends stuck now. What do we do after getting both ends stuck? We celebrate with a beer. Now I'm going to clean up the area with some alcohol and my lint-free sheets. Notice I have not cut either end yet. Grab a lint-free sheet right here, and I'm just going to dab, because I don't want to do a bunch of back and forth. And that, don't worry about that, that's just my multimeter automatically shutting down. Come on, let's get off there. And so we can see. And get some more alcohol. Don't know what that was. Pair of tweezers. Want you guys to be able to see this area. Get all that alcohol off of there. Okay, you can clearly see now that there is a, stop it, that there is a line soldered from here to there. Okay, so I'm going to use my multimeter. And I'm going to check if that line has continuity. So I'm going to put my probe right here and my other probe here. And there is continuity. So that is an example of a fixed trace. It is extremely delicate, and it takes practice because that wire is so light, it takes so little to knock it off course, and then the nature of solder is such that it has to harden before you move that wire. The only way you can get good at that is if you practice. Okay, what now? Well, I need to get rid of the wire. So I'm going to use my tweezers on this end here, and I'm going to grab it. And as you guys have probably seen, you don't have to be too delicate once it's actually soldered on. If I can grab it. Come on. Got some gook on my plier, on my tweezers. I want to pick it up. That's why you really need a good set of tweezers. Just lift up off the board, you wire. That's all I need for you to do. lift up off the board. And I can get under you. There we go. Okay. Did that wire break off? Okay, well, I'm going to assume that wire broke off. I'm going to grab this bottom one down here, and I am literally just going to rake it off. If I can get a hold of it. Once again, this wire is just 1/10 of a millimeter thick. And I may have just pulled that wire right out. Did I? No, the wire's right there. Okay, so I've broken the wire. Let's check for continuity again. Make sure that those 2 points are still continuous. And they are. Okay. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to cover you're going to want to mask that so it doesn't get messed up. That's a very thin wire over a very small area. And what you need to get is some universal UV hardening mask. And I got this off of northridgefix.com. And when they say use very little, man, do they really mean that. It takes very little of this to get on. I'm actually going to put a tiny little bit on an X-Acto knife here. And I'm just barely squeeze. I don't even know if you could call that a squeeze. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit on here to get it out. Okay. And then I'm going to use my tweezers, and I'm just going to scrape that off onto the area. Okay, maybe I need a little more mass than that. I'm going to do it a little different way. I'm going to squeeze just a tiny little bit right on the area. Gravity is not being nice to me. Okay, just a tiny little bit. Then I'm going to use my tweezers to spread that. Very easily spread. Make sure you get it all over the entire area. The whole area that you, and the entire wire. Okay, now I have put it over the entire wire. We have a drink of beer. Now this is UV hardening mask. So I have a UV light, if I can find it. Give me a sec. Here we go. I like to keep everything I have in the boxes. And this is my UV light. This is the mechanic's light. That's UV. And no, it's not hurting your eyes over the internet. I'm going to hold it onto this area. I can even look at the microscope as I'm doing it, about 20 seconds, because UV light does not travel through your electronic devices. Okay? But do not look directly at this light because it's UV. It will damage your retina. And that will harden. 20-ish seconds, maybe 40 seconds. While we're waiting for that to harden. My UV light is bumping into my very inexpensive microscope setup, and so that's why it's wobbling. And let's check now. After having been exposed to UV light for a little bit, let's check the hardness of that with my tweezers. And then there's another trick. Okay, yeah, that is actually hard. But something that some people do is they will go ahead and finish it off with a little bit of hot air. I'm going to run it down to the lowest. It only goes down to 100. Okay. And I will give that just a little bit of 100 degrees Celsius air. And it isn't the air that hardens it. It puts a nice dull finish on the top of it. So that's now nice and hard. Okay? And so folks, this is a repaired trace. So now the trace beginning right here is still connected to the trace up here. Now, I'm an advocate of practice, guys. You watch those guys on the internet. They're taking off tiny little capacitors and they're fixing tiny little traces and handling things with their tweezers that are really tiny. The only way that you can get good at that is practice. So every day, come home and practice doing something. Remove something. Do a trace repair. Desolder. Solder things. The only way that you can get good at this is repetition and practice. And within a couple years or so, you'll be a master at it. I do have one more thing. All right, and that tip is, today I'm using Home Texture Pomade. Now this is a water-based pomade, and I do recommend you use oil-based pomades because oil-based pomades don't dry and harden. This does, it's water-based, but it smells just like cologne, which is half the point. I'm not in a place where I can get too many manufactured oil-based pomades. I may have to make my own. But this smells fantastic. I have to beat women off of me with a stick. Okay? Those are your tips for today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.